Welcome, beautiful people, to the Sacred Travel Podcast. Summoned by the Earth is the title of this episode, and it is also the title of the book that was recently launched by Cynthia Jurs. She became a Dharma teacher in the order of Interbeing of Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh in 1994 and was made an honorary Lama in 2018. The Vajrayana tradition of Tibetan Buddhism in recognition of her dedication in carrying out the Earth Treasure Vase practice. Inspired by 30 years of pilgrimage into diverse communities and ecosystems, today Cynthia is forging a new path of Dharma in service to Gaia, a path deeply rooted in the feminine, the honoring of indigenous cultures, and devoted to collective awakening. Cynthia leads meditations, retreats, courses, and pilgrimages to support the emergence of a global community of engaged and embodied sacred activists. Welcome, Cynthia. I am so delighted to have you here and to speak about this, your incredible book and this incredible wisdom that you are bringing forward. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really wonderful to be here.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
I want to start, it's maybe not a surprise, but I want to raise the question that also brought you on this path and that you are starting the book with. So, my first question is, how can we bring healing and protection to the earth?
Mm. Well, you're right. That is my question. That was my question to a old wise man in a cave back in 1990 when I had the chance to meet him. And I realized as I was walking up the path in the Himalayas, that I had this opportunity to ask a question. And that was the question that came to me. And that is the question that has really guided my life ever since. And um, so the times that we're living in really are calling for us to bring healing and protection to the earth. And of course, that is going to need to happen on many levels. And we all need to get involved because it's a really enormous job um, to bring balance and harmony back to the earth and our relationship to the earth. For me, the task of doing that took the form of a practice that originates in the Tibetan tradition. Many centuries ago, it was brought forward and then brought forward again in these times because of what is called for now. And this is a practice to fill little clay pots, which are called Earth Treasure Vases, with prayers for the earth, with offerings that are symbolic of healing and protection in the places that are called for, which of course is everywhere. But we have
Mm-hmm.
taken many of these around the planet to all kinds of places, sacred places, places of conflict, places of ecological devastation, and everything in between. And so you would think, as I did when I first received this practice from the old wise man in the cave, that, how is a little clay pot filled with prayers and symbolic offerings going to really help address the issues that we face? But I have been surprised over and over again how such a thing can activate us in
Mm-hmm.
terms of what we most love and care about. And then we make our offerings into this little clay pot, and then we plant it like a seed in the ground, someplace that's calling for that. And then you would just be so amazed at the kinds of things that happen that we can't predict ahead of time, but we see arising either in the community or the land around or in ourselves, because we have, through the practice, we have connected with what we care about, and what we want to engage in as sacred activists in these times. So that's one way, to bring healing and protection to the earth. And you have to remember that everything starts everything starts from intention. It starts from a thought, a feeling, a prayer, and then that is what puts into action what arises in the world around us.
Hmm.
And so to focus on what we most love and care about, what we want to see in the world, has to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And with all of us engaging at that level, it's creating a world of change.
I love that. And when I started reading the book, and I'm about like halfway through, but I heard that term and it immediately resonated with me because I also feel that it is such a feminine way. Like I see that vessel, I see that womb space that is filled with dreams, with intentions, with prayers, that is then like given and offered to the womb space of Gaia to like to infuse her womb space with these amplified prayers. And it's, yeah, I've seen or heard so many people do special grid work, and I've never come across that practice. And so it's really, really inspiring. And I feel there is a part in me that's like, oh, I'm going to be doing that right away. And there's another part in me that's like, well, wait, am I actually worthy of, like, am I allowed to do that? How was that for
Mm,
you when you
mm.
started?
Oh, it's a great question because I totally felt unprepared. You know, like I didn't know where to begin. I didn't know what to do or how to do it. And yet the question and the need felt so great that I just eventually had to do it anyway, even though I didn't quite know or feel worthy. And I did when I received the first, I call it a generation, the first generation of Earth Treasure Vases. Um, I was very overwhelmed and I just put them away and they went into the closet for about 5 years before I started working with them. And then, slowly our community began to grow. So it wasn't just me, and that has been very helpful. But in Buddhism, we say that everyone has Buddha nature. Everyone has that wisdom nature. That's our true nature, that is our Gaia nature, that is
Mhm.
so beautiful and so wise. And we know what to do. We know what to do. And so the practice really empowers us all to engage in such a way that is most meaningful to us. And so, it doesn't matter that we haven't been trained, we haven't, gotten our degree or whatever it is, but that we trust our deepest heart, for what we want to see um, sustained and healed in this world.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah,
I love that. And I guess that is also so important because I feel that many people, no matter, what kind of healing they want to bring, but they feel overwhelmed and then nothing is happening at all. Where it's really when we tune into ourselves and that connection and the intuition, we can start with very, very simple things, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. We can start wherever we are. And, some of us have um, a little backyard, or we live in an apartment, or we have a huge calling, global calling. But whatever it is, it's something, and it makes a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did then, so the vases in the closet, and then what made you pick them up again and actually work with them? Hey everybody, if you are enjoying the show, then you would do me the biggest favor in clicking the subscribe button and engaging with my content so I can continue to deliver these beautiful conversations to you. Thank you so much.
I started to notice signs of climate change, for example.
Mm.
There were increasing forest fires in this region where I live, droughts. Everything was starting to change, and this was back in the 90s. So, this has been going on for a while. It's not just all of a sudden, oh my God, this is something that we have had early warnings about for a long time. So
Mhm.
that was part of it. I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and across the Rio Grande Valley, the Rio Grande River Valley, is the Los Alamos, the town of Los Alamos, which is where the first and second atomic bombs were created. And it's still a place where the production of nuclear weapons is happening. And the poisoning of the land and the waters that is coming off of the
Mhm.
production of nuclear weapons is really threatening to the whole,
Yeah.
um, not only this ecosystem, but all around the planet. These are substances that go into these bombs that affect the web of life for thousands and thousands of years. So that was a big concern to me. And I felt like, you know, we have to do something, and this was what was given to me. It's an unusual task, this one, but yeah,
Yeah, well, I feel sometimes, yeah, spirit assigns unusual tasks. But that's
exactly.
what we signed up for, right?
That is. Yeah, and many people, some people are really good at getting out and, rolling up their sleeves and pounding the pavement or advocating politically or, all those kinds of things. Many of us also are more spiritually inclined, and this is
Yeah.
where sort of the sacred activism comes in, that just even going to a sacred site or a place that is calling to us is to make a relationship with the earth in a sacred way and in a way
Mm.
that is um, needed in the world, because so many of us, especially those of us in the colonizer culture of Western civilization, we have forgotten and we have
Yeah.
dominated the earth and indigenous cultures and traditions to the point where um, we're in big trouble. So it's part of making balance in the world.
I can see that. And to me, as like a ritualist, ceremonialist myself, I always feel that this really is where the connection or the reconnection is being reestablished. Like being in that sacred, yeah, um, sacred union with Gaia in a way. So take us a little bit on your journey. How do these, so then you started working with the vases, how does that sacred practice actually look like? What does it involve?
Well, it involves a meditation we do every full moon and have for over 30 years, that invites us into imagining um, a kind of global healing mandala of locations around the planet where healing is called for. And these are where the Earth Treasure Vases have been planted over all these years. I mean, we now have between 70 and 90 in the ground. And so it's really an incredible healing mandala that each one of these little clay pots is filled with, as I say, with our prayers and offerings. So what we do is we gather, and now these are going out in individuals besides myself, so I'm not the only one who is taking them places anymore, but they need to be filled, and so we make a ceremony to put offerings into the vase. We do the meditation, and then we open the little clay pot and we put offerings in that are, it's like a kind of alchemy, really, like
Mm.
what would this location like? What is called for here? And we always leave them open until we get to wherever it is we're going, because some cultures, have many cultures have offerings, but some of them are very different than what would be offered, say, in Tibet
Yeah.
or in Native America or wherever. So we leave them open, and they're supposed to be filled completely, just filled. And it's really wonderful to take them around to places and invite people into the ceremony to make their own prayers and offerings um, to that location. And then eventually when they're filled, they're sealed and sealed with beeswax and then draped with these cloths that are representative of the of the center and the four directions, excuse me, of the mandala, and
Mm-hmm.
then tied and then sealed. We seal them again and place them often in place the vase in a protected container that someone makes. It's usually a beautiful part of the process, and then taken to a location and buried in such a way, planted in the earth in such a way that no one would necessarily know that it's there. Like it's not like, oh, here's the earth treasure vase. It's like just this little seed offering, really,
Yeah.
that is actually not so little, but it's once it's buried, it's never supposed to be dug up, so it's like
Mm.
in the ground, and it stays there, and it contributes all those prayers and offerings into this global healing mandala. And every full moon, when we do this meditation, which we do now on Zoom, so people can join from all over the world, um, we invoke each of the locations where one of the treasure vases has gone. So it's a way of keeping it alive, and sending our prayers and activating those locations. And we do a visualization that is really about sending our caring and our love and our intentions to relieve suffering on earth and to restore balance. We send that out in the form of light to all of the people and animals and places that need that healing and protection in the past, in the present, and in the future. And so it's a beautiful thing. And then we often have people come onto the full moon calls who describe their experience stewarding one of the vases to a particular location that is happening now. And
Mm.
those stories are really moving and really beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can imagine. That sounds super profound. And, when you speak about the mandala, I'm curious, was that something that was the intention from the beginning, or was that something that unfolded over time?
Well, it wasn't like I thought about it or I figured it out. It really did unfold over time because the need is so great. How can you possibly decide rationally or conceptually where the treasure vases should go? So we really were very spontaneous about it, and it just was one thing led to another kind of thing. But it did occur to me that here in this region where I live, um, there's the river system of the Rio Grande River. And the rivers usually define what we call a bioregion, so
Hmm.
it's not like defined by political boundaries, but it's more like the ecosystem of that region, which is shared by all kinds of, people on both sides of political boundaries.
Yeah.
And in our case, this is where, as I mentioned, the Los Alamos National Laboratory is. And because of that intensity of that location, the first treasure vase that we buried was above the Los Alamos National Lab. And then I thought actually that we could take one to the source of the Rio Grande River, which is a
Hmm.
meaningful place for a treasure vase because the prayers are carried,
Of course, all
by the
along the
river.
waterway. Yeah.
Yeah, like the prayer flags in the wind, carrying the prayers out that way, also in the Tibetan tradition. So we took one to the source of the Rio Grande, and then we took one to the mouth of the Rio Grande, which empties into the Gulf of Mexico.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, it
Wow.
goes all the way out. And then
Yes.
there's mountains around this area, and we placed one on top of the two mountains to the east and the west, which are also very good locations. So I sort of lost my exact thought, but I was speaking about them going to the four directions here on top of two mountains, the source of the river, the mouth of the river, and then in the center at this place above the Los Alamos National Laboratory. So that established the basic mandala, which is the center in the four directions. And then the treasure vases started going out in every direction around the planet from here. And so we think of all of the locations as making up a global healing mandala.
Hmm.
And um, so I hope that answers your question.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And now that you've talked so much about that mandala, I'm really curious about, can you share some of the magic that really unfolded with this practice?
I certainly can. There's been so many amazing things that have happened. It's hard to know where to even begin. I mean, and there's still some that are, remain to be seen, like Los Alamos. We planted this vase here, and the situation here is, going to take lifetimes to
Yeah.
transform. But one of my beloved Native American elders here in this region, the Tewa world, speaks about how the land was taken from her people to build the laboratory, but that slowly, and so they haven't been able to do their ceremonies, which helps to
Hmm.
keep everything in balance.
Yes.
But she says that she has sensed little openings, that allow her and her people to go and make some of those ceremonies again.
Mm.
So that's a start, right?
Yes.
When we took a treasure vase to, um, there's a place on the coast of Mexico called, of the coast of Oaxaca in Mexico, called Punta Cometa, and we buried a treasure vase there. It was an incredible moment where, when we were searching for the location, I brought the vase out and held it up to the ocean and to the, it was this point of land going out into the water. It's a sacred place kept by the local indigenous peoples for many, many generations. And we hadn't seen a place to plant the vase. And I held the vase up, and a whale breached immediately right then.
Wow. What a
And it
sign.
just, the spray came onto the vase, you know. And I remembered in that moment, I remembered that just back there was this old, huge, tall saguaro cactus that was standing like a sentinel, guarding the land. And this is a region where there had been a terrible hurricane that had just
Hmm.
flattened everything. And we took the vase there after that. And anyway, we went back and planted the vase at the base of this huge saguaro cactus. And it was just a
Hmm.
beautiful ceremony. And about 5 years later, I went back with my husband to the location, and we were sitting there at sunset, and we thought, well, let's just do a meditation at sunset. Here we are, the vase is here. And all of a sudden, all these people started coming quietly, respectfully, mindfully, to watch the sunset and meditate.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
And nobody had ever told them the treasure vase is buried there, or this is a good idea, a good thing to do at sunset here. You know what I mean? And it just arose naturally. And now this is a place where that happens every day.
Hmm.
So that was a great
Wow.
example. When we there's a image in my book. It's hard to describe, but we took a treasure vase to the area around Avebury in England,
Yeah.
where there's over 600 standing stones in a very large circle, and it's like one of the world's great sacred places. And we actually did plant a treasure vase near there, and I can't reveal the location, but when we did that, it was just utterly magic. I do write about it in my book. And afterwards, it's the region where the crop circles appear.
Hmm.
And the most amazing crop circle appeared
Oh my
right
goodness.
after.
I have no doubt about that. Wow.
It was really incredible. So there's that kind of thing. And so the first place I went in Africa, I went to a country called Liberia that is a very small country in the western part of Africa.
Hmm.
Had been through a very hard civil war, and I was invited there by a group called the Everyday Gandhis, who do peace work, peace building work after the war. And there's a lot of things that happened there, which are also written about in the book. But um, these are people that had suffered war in very bad ways. And after we planted the vase, they were saying, well, now what? We want to remember these prayers. This is important to us. We want peace. And so what came about at the suggestion of a former um, rebel general who worked with us, who had become a peace builder, he suggested that we build a peace hut, which is a round, open walled structure that allows for people to gather and meet and pray for peace and resolve conflict in a traditional way. And so our organization raised the money for them to build that peace hut. And since then, he and others have trained people to resolve conflict,
Oh, wow.
practice mindfulness, work with former child soldiers to sustain the peace. And we've actually built 5 peace huts in different regions of Liberia
Hmm.
as places for people to go. The first one was built right at the place where the treasure vase was planted. So this is an ongoing effort. And his life, this particular former combatant in particular, was very, very deeply transformed through our meeting and through
Yeah.
learning to meditate, you know.
Yeah.
So peace can come in many ways, and you never know. You never know.
I
Those are
thank
just
you so
a few.
much.
Yeah.
Well, those are just a few, but you've touched on so many layers already of, yeah, like I asked, what's the magic of it? And there was really the magic, but then there was also very tangible and necessary steps within society, within cultures that are happening. So that's really amazing. Thank you for speaking to that. And another thing that I would really be interested to know is you spoke about sacred activism, and I can imagine that because also sometimes there is the need for those vases to be, and I love the term planted, by the way, it's not buried, but it's planted into the earth in these strategic locations that also might not always be accessible in a good way or where the sacred activism is welcome. So
Yeah.
how did you yeah cope with situations that were a bit tricky maybe?
That's an interesting question. You know, for the most part, we have made a strong effort to seek the blessing of the elders of the
Yeah.
indigenous traditional cultures
Yeah.
in the places that we go,
Yeah.
um, so that we are not doing anything that might be um, creating problems, for them out of respect, because this is not, in many cases, this is not our land. So we put our time and energy into building relations properly. Um, but there have been some times when some um, I don't know what the word would be, but some care has been needed to sort of protect ourselves. I mean, like in
Yeah.
India, for example, we went towards as far as we could go to the source of the Ganges as another source of
Wow.
a river that is a very
Yeah.
important artery upon Mother Earth. And if you've ever been to India, you know that people are everywhere and they're always very curious and they want to know what's happening everywhere you go. And so you can be somewhere very remote and suddenly there's 10 people standing all around watching.
Yeah.
So we had received the blessings and we had been instructed where to go to plant the vase. Um, I say vase, you say vase. I kind of go back and forth. But anyway, we were there and we realized that even though, this was a remote place, we were concerned that somebody might appear, and you just
Hmm.
don't want them to be dug up. They're not really
Yeah.
valuable. I mean, they're incredibly valuable, but they don't have real treasures in them, you
Material.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Anyway, so our group had to divide up, and some people went with the vehicle that took us there a little further down the road for a picnic. And a few of us were dropped off in the forest to dig the hole and plant the vase. And so we were hoping that the other people would be a distraction, and they wouldn't see us because we were in the forest. So that's how we took care of it in one location. And certainly there have been other stories that that have happened over time. I
This
mean,
sounds.
there is a funny story. I'll tell you because we planted a treasure vase in South Africa at a place called the Blyder River Canyon. That's an incredible place, and there's that whole story is in my book as well. And when we put it in, excuse me, to the ground, we all of us felt this incredible energetic shift of it going in to the earth
Hmm.
in Africa and they talk about the sort of the axis mundi of
Hmm.
earth is in like a spine in Africa. It's also
Yeah.
sometimes referred to as the Nilotic meridian because it
Yes.
starts at the Nile in Egypt and goes all the way down to South Africa. And we really felt like in this location in South Africa, we were connecting with that energy. And someone who was with us was going to be going to Egypt a little later in the year and visiting the pyramids and doing, a sacred tour. And offered to take a treasure vase to Egypt, which of course was incredible because that is such a powerful, beacon and
Yes.
sacred place on earth. And so they took the vase and they were actually there over 11 11 11.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And apparently a lot of other people decided to go to the Great Pyramids on that same day because of the significance of the number and everything. And so the Egyptian government shut down the pyramids. They were concerned about
Hmm.
terrorism.
Hmm.
But our friends had, their guide was very connected and he was able to managed to get them in
Oh, wow.
anyway. And so, but they had to pretend that it was a birthday, and someone was going to have their birthday out there on the desert next to the Great Pyramid. And they went on camels out into the desert with the treasure vase. And then they gathered in a circle. There were guards, protecting the pyramid because of this whole thing. Anyway, they made a circle and sang happy birthday and all kinds of other songs and made a big party like atmosphere because they were afraid the sound of the shovel would
Oh,
cause
yes.
the guards to come. And so anyway, they got it in. And then they laid down on the ground and they just, gazed at the stars and gave thanks. And, it was done. It was done. And it
It
was
was
done in an
done.
incredible way. But
That sounds like out of an Indiana Jones movie. I love it.
oh, I know. So funny.
Wow. And I have to say that I also kind of like that little secrecy to that sacred activism in a way, because yeah, sometimes, you just have to pretend that something else is going on while we're doing the work. That's what it is. So,
Well, my dear friend, Wendy Johnson, took one of the treasure vases very early on to an old growth redwood forest in Northern California. The redwood trees are so important to the health of the planet. And
mhm.
there was an area that was trying to be protected, and it was under threat from logging. And she connected with a group of activists, like really fierce activists, and they went under cover of darkness to where the fence line was of this logging company. There was a gate, and they had to literally jump out of a moving van
Oh, wow.
to run through the gate. There were barking dogs, and they had to run through the gate and into the forest and then hike 6 hours into the forest, into the heart of the old growth forest,
Wow.
to plant through the clear cutting to plant the vase. And they did. And it was so incredible. And that forest was protected.
Hmm. Wow. So it really like proved to be a very profound, yeah, practice for healing.
Yeah,
Well, it continues to be, right? So,
it does. It does. It goes
yeah,
on. It goes on.
yeah.
And as I say, many, many others besides me are taking them now and working with them. And actually, this month in June, we're doing a in-person retreat here in Santa Fe to
Hmm.
gather with many of the treasure vases that are still in process and to activate the global mandala in a very strong way, because we'll be meeting over the full moon, and also it's the solstice. So
Yes.
kind of in that portal, of sacred time, we
Yeah.
will be practicing very deeply to really activate all these prayers
Yeah.
for Mother.
In the portal of the light. That's
Yes,
beautiful.
exactly.
So, all of these and more incredible stories you share in the book, but I guess, yes, the book is some sort of like capturing really your lifelong pilgrimage and your lifelong devotion, but what it is that you really see impacting readers, or what do you want to like bring to the world with this book?
Mm, thank you. Well, I think my deepest prayer is that we all wake up to connecting with the earth and receiving the wisdom of nature, that is so profound. And not only that, but engaging in all our creativity in ways that will protect and heal this beautiful blue-green planet that we call home, which is our only home and which we depend on in every way. And so to take care of her and to transform our ways, to wake up to whatever that is for each of us individually, and to not perpetuate the same problems that have gotten us into this
Mm-hmm.
place of imbalance and disharmony in the world. So I feel as if the other message of the book is that we are in the process of a collective awakening. The time of the
Yes.
individual is over, really. We're all in this together. And so to come into this relationship of interbeing with each other and with the earth and with all beings, no matter who or what they are, we're all connected. And to realize our inseparability and to take responsibility for protecting life on earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Uncle Bob Randall is an elder from Australia who I had the great honor to meet and who blessed the treasure vase that went there. And he talked about a thing he calls kanini. It means unconditional love with responsibility. And it's like one of the
Wow.
most basic teachings. And yeah, there's a beautiful story later on in the book. You must read the whole book
I
because
will.
the story from Australia is really beautiful. And so this notion of unconditional love with responsibility is very important for us all to come to terms with within
Yeah.
ourselves, to find that love as you, I'm sure, invite your community into the heart, and to what we love, our compassion, our caring. And so often that's awakened by going to places where this feeling of awe is awakened, you
Yeah.
know, and we are just so inspired by what we're seeing in and feeling in the land, or the waters or the mountains and the animals or whatever it is. So all of that is part of the inspiration that then awakens the caring and the compassion and the love that then leads to this sense of responsibility. Not in a heavy,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my God, I have to do this thing, but in a sense of what else is there to do? You
Yeah.
know, like this, I want to give my life to this.
Yes. It's so inspiring. I really, like I close my eyes and I can see that mandala and I can see how it's not just the places, but it's also the people coming together and being led, and how we actually kind of like re-sacretize the connection with the earth. And I love how you said the collective consciousness. So, a term that I've come across recently in the work of Rory Duff. I don't know if you know him. He mentioned something like we are going from the personal consciousness to the collective consciousness to the grid consciousness. And I feel that the work that you are doing and this ancient, bringing back that ancient practice is such an inspiring way to contribute to that. So thank you.
Yes, yes, exactly, exactly. I haven't met or really know of Rory Duff's work, although I've heard of him through the astrologer Pam Gregory.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
just found that like the term interesting, and I was like, I can feel that, and I can totally see that. Yeah.
Well, we've really put a lot of energy into this global mandala, and I do feel as if it's almost like a living being now, with all these prayers into like acupuncture points into the body of Mother Earth, when you tune into it and feel into it, as we do every full moon, with the naming of all the locations and imagining, what's happened there. Um, it's been incredible to feel as if there's something evolutionary actually happening
Mm,
here. That
yeah.
the more of us are tuned in, the more of us who are contributing our prayers, the more of us who are aligning in our intentions, it is contributing and it is creating this possibility for a real transformation and awakening.
Completely. And I just also want to ask, because it's the second time for me that I heard about the acupuncture, symbolism in that way. There was somebody else who was talking about it, and then you talk about it in your book. And so I'm like, okay, there is something to that, like us as humans being these acupuncture needles on the earth. And I was coming from the perception of like seeing me and everybody as a tuning fork, but I actually really love that acupuncture needle, and also like give. It's not about only the sending out, but it's also the what do we give in, the frequency and the,
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
devotion, unconditional love.
Well, we've taken from her for a very long time, which is why we are in this state of such imbalance, because we haven't given back. And so making offerings is really important. And all the indigenous cultures do that, right? They make
Yes.
offerings to sustain her, to give her, to feed her, as she feeds us, and to establish a sacred relationship to the web of life that we are just a little teeny tiny part of. But establishing that reciprocity is so important. And so, we can, all we have to do is open our eyes and our ears, and we see that the earth is in pain. The earth is
Yeah.
suffering. The earth is, the waters are polluted. The storms are stronger. The fires are, uh, stronger. The wars are everywhere. Like it take, you don't know which direction to turn, right? So, if you can imagine these little holy vessels as an offering to a place that is in pain, or a place that needs to be strengthened in the case of a sacred place, it's like it's a way to restore that balance and to give
Mm,
back, to give ourselves, so we pour our hearts into this. It's not about just
yeah.
taking and receiving all the time, because she's very depleted, just like many of us are, because we've been working, never stopping, just going on and on and on. And it's like we don't even know who we are anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Completely. I feel so at ease and in peace right now. So this whole conversation has really, yeah, brought me into my own heart. So thank you for sharing all of these practices and the wisdom. And I really feel inspired. And I'm sure that a lot of the listeners and people who are watching this are too. So where can people find you?
Thank you so much. It's really wonderful to meet you and connect with you. The website is called GaiaMandala.net, and the various practices that we do and pilgrimages and ways of getting involved with the Earth Treasure Vase practice can all be accessed there. There's a newsletter that we send out every just before the full moon, so people know when the full moon meditation is happening and what we're going to be focusing on. And I really encourage people to sign up for that, because it's also where we share about retreats and pilgrimages and all of those things. So I hope that you'll join us for the full moon meditation. We alternate between morning and evening in the U.S., to accommodate people in different time
Time
zones.
zones.
So
That's a brilliant idea.
yeah, we have to, because we have people all over the place. And I wish there was one time that was, helpful for everyone. But really hard to find. Anyway, it's a free call. It lasts about 2 hours every full moon. And it's a very deep restorative practice for healing for ourselves as well as for the earth, but to connect with that whole vision. And yeah, there's a lot more I could say, but that's a really, really good place for people to begin, is there.
Beautiful. And so the book is called Summoned by the Earth. Get your copy, everyone. We are also going to be putting the links where to find it, where to buy it. Yeah, I really have to say I'm in love with it. I'm in love with the practice, and I am definitely going to be checking out the the circles and the gatherings.
Wonderful. Thank you. Just to say, there's a website for the book called summonedbytheearth.org.
Awesome.
And
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot about the book, and other podcasts, and this podcast will go up there. Yeah. But you can find out where to buy it there too. Yeah.
That is perfect. Spread the word. Yeah, as much as
Yeah.
possible. Thank you, Cynthia. It's been such a pleasure to have you. And it's been even greater to, yeah, just learn from you and hear you share this path that is still unfolding. And it's very inspiring, I hope. And I know that a lot of people will take a lot from that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. I really appreciate the depth of your response. It's beautiful. So I hope to see you again, and may it continue. Yeah.
May it continue. Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into this episode. And if you liked the show, I would be super grateful that you leave me a review or a rating or subscribe to the channel so I can continue to have these beautiful guests and inspire you with the earth wisdom. Thank you, and see you next time.